welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposal. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. Another round has come, another round has gone, and I will say this, thank God, the buys are finally done. Thank you. So, now that I've gotten that off my chest, ladies and gentlemen, the best part is for yours truly is for the duration of the season. We will get 9 games. Cannot wait. And joining me today, my co-host, a very good friend of mine, one of my interviewees that is a huge Brisbane Lions supporter, and I had to have her on because I love talking footy with her. We have Lori rejoining the show. Lori, it is great to see you again.
Hi, Donnie. Thanks for having me.
Always fun to talk with somebody that's not from Victoria about this wonderful game that is football and in one of the growing epicenters of football up in Queensland. So let's have some fun, Lori. Let's jump right into it. Your thoughts on this interesting round 16?
Oh, it was a bit all over the place. I think it's the haves and the have-nots, really. So we had some really good performances from some teams, and there were some pretty disappointing performances from other teams. Uh, there's some interest in the Tom Lynch saga that will drag on this week. We'll talk about that later. Uh, but yeah, it was a bit of a funny round. I'm glad the buys are coming to an end. But yeah, there was a couple of flat games there. The Tassie game was a bit one-sided, so not super enjoyable to watch. But there are a couple of surprising, entertaining games throughout the weekend that we'll talk about.
Definitely. It was a very interesting round of football. The craziest part about it is I think this is one of the few ever times I tipped all the games correctly in my tipping
Well
competition. So
done.
I will pat myself on the shoulder, but unfortunately looking at that tipping competition, I was one of about 40 that got it all right. So that may show how easy tipping might have been this particular week. So let's get into the minutia. Let's get into the weeds of this. We'll start off with the one that I know has Victoria shaking with anticipation this week, and that is the Port Adelaide Power get a 50-point win over Carlton, 110-60. And man, are the literally are the halls just echoing with anger coming from Carlton as another dismal loss now sees a lot of drama is Voss going? Are the board going? So many different questions, so very few answers when it comes to it. Laurie, your thoughts on this because another pitiful performance by the Blues.
Yeah, they just it's just such a it's just another lost season really for Carlton. They have the manpower there, but they just can't put it together for the full season at all, and they can't get their troops on the field. Charlie Curnow's been a real disappointment the last couple of rounds. He was kept goalless this weekend and just doesn't look likely at the moment. And he's their linchpin up forward, so it's really hard to kick goals when your main goal scorer isn't firing.
Yeah, no, 100% with you on that one. This is just a Carlton team, and honestly, I was listening to the first crack preview, and he was going on and on about how Carlton really doesn't have any elite kicks. So when you've got forwards that they have to constantly fight and contest and mark in different situations like that. One second. Okay, so now we are back. We had a tiny bit of a delay, had something to do really, really quickly. So where were we? Oh yes, Coach was talking about this game when it comes to it. Again, Carlton just for me, there's just way too many deficiencies kicking and going forward. Too many times that they're trusting that the talls of Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow will come mark the footy. But when you start getting two and three defenders and they know exactly where it's coming, it becomes a tiny bit of a problem. So they just have to get this figured out. I agree with some of the experts. I think you're looking at a list overhaul. I honestly think either Charlie Curnow or Harry Mackay, I think will get moved in the offseason. And I think they're going to get moved for a halfback flanker, a winger, somebody with much better kicking skills because right now that's what they need. They don't need to keep both of these monsters up forward if they can't kick it to them correctly. So they got to get people that can deliver it to them on a lead, hit the chest, not put it 3 feet above their head and then expect them to be the giants that they are up forward. And I don't want to not give Port their plaudits. Okay. Miles Bergman was fantastic in this game. I'm loving seeing Asava Radikalia starting to play much better football. He's been
Yes.
so
Yes.
damn inconsistent for the Port Adelaide Power. So seeing him play well, him and Alir, I think, make kind of for a scary combination when they're on. Unfortunately, they
Yeah.
have more off than they have on. And Mitch Georgiades starts the round, and you'll start to see this trend the entire round of people kicking bags of five. And it's
Yes.
fantastic to see the young man kick his bag of five, have a lot of fun. He gets to fill his boots. It was a fantastic for the Port Adelaide Power. Carlton, unfortunately, not so much. And as we're seeing talk radio and all that, this is going to be an interesting week to keep track of everything down in Blues lands because whether heads will roll is the biggest question. And I'll be fascinated to see what is done at the good old Navy Blues. Let's jump up to the SCG on Friday Night Footy, and we are treated to an absolute belter. Yours truly was up and about, super excited on a Friday morning at 4 in the morning to watch this, and I was happily happily treated to an incredible game of football. Minus one thing. We'll discuss that just at the end of this. As the Doggies pull off a 9 point win over the Swans, 105-96. And I'll say this, let me don my red hat, Lori, really quickly, as the Swans supporter that I am. I know this is a loss, but dang, was it good to see Errol Goulden absolutely have some fun. Tommy Papley getting after Sam Darcy, also kicking goals and doing his normal psycho goal celebrations, which are always fun. But Jake Lloyd comes back from being dropped, kicks goals,
Yeah.
has that kind of renaissance up forward a little bit. The goal kicking kind of burned them a little bit, especially early in the game. If they kicked straighter a little bit, this could have been a completely different game. But all due
Yeah.
credit, Joel Frazier, absolutely nuts. Kicks four goals off the wing and looks absolutely fantastic. The Bont Jr. comparisons are definitely not hyperbole for sure. The Bont looking fantastic. Aaron Naughton and Sam Darcy both going for 3 goals in this game. Incredible, incredible game. Am I disappointed the Swans lost? Yes. But I'm super, super encouraged by the improvement by adding the superstar talent that is Errol Goulden, Tommy Papley. Cal Mills is starting to get back to
Yeah.
kind of full on condition. So as disappointing as it is for the loss, I was very encouraged by the form that they showed against a very good Dougie's team, who I think if they play this type of football, could be quite the dangerous team come finals time.
Oh, look, the Dogs for me are the smoky for the finals.
I agree.
They have just got class along every line on that coach's board. He has got so many magnets and levers that he can pull. It was great to see Fraser. I think he was the 45th pick of his draft. Absolutely stamp his put his mark on the team and when you've got James Jordan looking after Ed Richards and really doing a good job on him early. I was really impressed with Jordan. He got a goal on him as well, which was great. Then you need other people to step up, and that was Fraser's role on Friday night, and he did a fantastic job. I thought Brodie Grundy is just
Mm,
having a renaissance as well. He sort of went a bit missing there for a while and was probably a bit disappointing last year, but this year and then particularly the last 5 rounds or so, he has just improved week on week, and that was a stellar performance from Brodie against
mm,
the Bulldogs ruck in Tim English.
Yep. Yeah, Timmy English is one of those that he's kind of walked back himself a little bit. But yeah, Brody Grundy he's found a vein of form that absolutely, absolutely intrigues me because he looks magnificent. The one back tap to Chad Warner early in the game was absolutely sensational. And I almost forgot we aren't even discussing the fact that Isaac Heaney goes for a bag of five in this particular game. Frazier
Yes.
goes for four on one side, and Isaac Heaney goes, hold my beer. I got you one better. And he gets
Yeah,
going forward. So,
he had a
again,
great game.
so many encouraging things. The first ever the debut of Jack Bullard. He kicks a goal in his first game, which is always fantastic to see the boys get around him. And I know he had a clanger earlier in the game where he had probably a set shot goal that he should have made and skews off the left side of his boot and goes for a behind. But to see him hit that snag late in the third quarter to kind of get the energy back into the SCG was fantastic. So again, a lot of encouraging signs. I'm 100% with you. This doggies team, if they play that type of football come finals time,
Yeah.
they're a scary threat to the top four because they're just that talented. There's so many different weapons that they can use. Bailey Dale goes for his usual 30. Vaught really was kind of held quiet for most of this game. He
He
does
was
get his
quiet.
goal.
Yeah.
He gets his stuff done. That I will tip my hat to Jamesy Rowbottom. He's a very good defensive midfielder. And I agree with you, Jamesy Jordan, the padlock locked up Ed Richards, and really I agree with you. Joel Frazier kind of went, okay, Eddie's out, my turn to step up, and it was fantastic. Seeing Aaron Naughton play really well as well with Sam Darcy up forward was great to see because I know he's constantly been the whipping boy for that front line of the Western Bulldogs. So again, Dougie's fantastic. I thought the Swans played really, really well. If it was anybody else except the Doggies, I think the Swans win that game. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, just not finishing. Let's talk about the elephant in the room real quick. I don't want to discuss non-football stuff very much just because, again, it's out of my control. And it's the absolute hair on fire moments of the media after with the condition of the turf. Do I understand their grievances with it because you could get a player hurt and all that? I absolutely do. But man, the carry on after a while got a little bit annoying. I'm like, I get it, but both teams have to deal with it. Nobody got hurt. I get it. You don't want anybody to have that opportunity, but the carry on got a little excessive after a while. And like I said, I get it. Players were going down like they were on an ice skating rink. I completely get that.
Yeah.
But man, the carry on, I think just a little bit too much.
We're pretty precious about our grass over here, Donny.
It seems like it.
Yeah, it's just frustrating it from a product point of view to see
Mhm.
players slipping over all over the place and goals sneaking through because the defenders literally just slipped over. It's not representative of skill, I guess, and so it is frustrating to watch and that grass has been like that for quite a while now and it just doesn't seem to be improving. And if we saw improvement, we'd probably deal with it a bit better, but we're not getting that at the moment, and we've got some bad weather coming our way this week, so I don't know whether it's going to be much better next weekend either.
Well, maybe the rain will even it out and the entire thing will be slippery. So they don't have
Yeah,
instead
possibly.
of just being that, I think it's the Paddington, and I think is I can't remember what end that is for sure. But yeah, no, damn you, Botticelli coming in for a concert just before the season started. Damn you! No, I'm kidding. No, we don't mind opera singers, so we rewind that. So all right, again, fantastic game of football. Again, marred a little bit by the field conditions. Were there a couple of goals that probably happened because of the field conditions? Absolutely. Like there's no way to argue it. But I think it was kind of even both ways. I think both teams had moments where defenders go down, the player's wide open, and it causes a goal. So I don't think it was a massive swing for either or just because of the switching of ends. But it was something that, again, I'm interested to see how it handles. I think somebody's come out in the last 24 hours and said that the game is not moving, it's just not happening, and that they think that they can get it figured out before the game on Sunday, I believe, against Fremantle. And then, as you said, the weather could be quite the interesting role on
Mm.
add on that we'll have to definitely see on that. So let's jump up to People's First Stadium as the Gold Coast Suns beat the Melbourne Demons 104-85. But I remember watching the first quarter, and if the first quarter would have maintained the entire thing, the D's would have been blown out by halftime. So the D's with a nice little comeback to get it to just over 3 goals. But I don't know what to say on this one. And I know, Laura, you had the opportunity to go down because your beloved Brisbane Lions had the week off this week. They got to kick their feet up. So you guys decided, let's go down to the Gold Coast and watch the Suns v the D's. So seeing it live, thoughts on People First Stadium and thoughts on this game?
So People First Stadium is very Gold Coast. It's very laid back. You can go out the back of the stadium, have a kick at halftime. It's a different vibe entirely to the Gabba. But just very, very Gold Coast. They've done a good job there getting the essence of the coast within a stadium. We were sitting down the wrong end of the first quarter, so I didn't see a heck of a lot of the first quarter because it was all down the other end, which was very frustrating. And we we're all a little bit gobsmacked with just how poorly the Demons were doing in that first quarter. They were just getting ripped apart all over the place, and they didn't. I don't even know if they actually had a decent forward 50 entry themselves. It was a very poor effort. Um, the second quarter they started and improve. But look, all I could see from I was ground level. All I could see was Matt Rao just just had a blinder of a game. He was everywhere, and John Noble doing a lot of cleaning up across the halfback line. God, he's a fantastic kick and really a quiet achiever in that team. And I'm really pleased for him that he's getting this sort of second career up at Gold Coast after the frustrations down at Collingwood. Um, Loved Bailey Humphrey's rundown tackle of Cozzy Pickett. That was enormous. That was right in front of us. That was just fantastic. Um, and having been at the ground, I could, from a Jake Melksham point of view, we could see how much cramp he had over the last two quarters. He was constantly stretching the whole second half. And yet he managed to kick 5 goals. He was enormous and probably the reason that Melbourne really started their comeback. He kept them competitive. And in the end, I actually think the difference in scores was flattering to the Demons. I thought Gold Coast were a
Mhm.
bit better than what was that 20 points difference.
Yep, no, that was one of those. The D's making that giant making the comeback really made this score a lot more competitive than really what it was. That if you look at statistics wise, Gold Coast pretty much dominated this entire most of this entire game, and great effort by Melksham being able to do that. And so there's just no other way to argue that. And I honestly believe that the signings of Dan Rioli and John Noble, I really think have been the catalyst for this team because they already had a ton of talent in the midfield. They had a ton of talent on in the forward line. The
Yeah.
defensive halfback line was where they were deficient. They tried Sam Flanders back there, but he doesn't have the run that Dan Rioli and John Noble have, and you could see the difference this year. They're much, much, much quicker off halfback flank, especially the way the
Dan
footy
Rioli's
is.
speed was breathtaking.
Yep, yep.
Absolutely. He had one run, and I reckon he ran 100 meters in the blink of an eye. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. And it's hard to pick it up on the TV, but when you're there, his speed was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I said in the off, I said in my off season, I said that's the catalyst for Gold Coast there that they have the halfback flankers that they need, the running halfback
Mm.
flankers that can put a ball right in a teacup from anywhere that they want. That's what you need because that is
Yeah.
the go-to position and player in the AFL present day. Every single club that is successful right now has a player like that off that halfback flanker position. So you can see that it is a copycat league. When some people have success with it, everybody else starts trying it. So again, tips off to the Gold Coast. I think they're finally going to make their first finals this year, which is great for them. How much damage they'll do, still up for debate on whether how that'll go because when you're playing the best of the best, you're not getting these soft wins over a
Mm.
Melbourne team that I still think is a little bit don't know what Melbourne does in this offseason. Do they shift to Petrarca and Oliver to try to get younger, or do they try to figure out a way to still keep them in the side, but give a little bit of a revamp because it's just and unfortunately it went well for a bit, but people kind of figured it out, and now it feels like they're kind of reverting back to the mean. So unfortunately, so we'll jump down to University of Taz Stadium where the butt whippings start for this particular round as the Hawks put a hammering on the North Melbourne Kangaroos, 150-65. And Laurie, I may be a Swans fan, but damn it, I'm getting annoyed because this North team continues to find ways to disappoint me because the great win, their wins this year have just not been followed up with a
Mm.
return on investment. It's I feel bad for the North fans because they have to go through this on a weekly basis where it's like I don't know if North's actually going to give me their best or if they're going to give me a performance like this. This is a good Hawks team. Is this a great Hawks team? I don't really
Yeah.
think so. I think they've kind of been found out a little bit. So I was expecting a competitive North side. I was expecting this game to come down to the fourth quarter. Just didn't. I mean, Jack Gunston, the forever unaging Jack Gunston, kicked 7 in this. Mario Cho goes for 5 as well. So, I mean, never a good night when two of the forwards in the other team combine for 12 goals.
Look, I first of all, I was really happy for Jack Gunston. The Brisbane Lions experiment wasn't a success for him, so it's really nice to see him return down to Hawks. And to kick career high 7 goals at his stage of his career was outstanding. And I loved Chol. I love seeing him have a bit more impact. And I loved that chase down tackle of his. That was fantastic. And I thought Lloyd Meek did a really good job on Cherry. Cherry's been so dominating as a ruck this season. He's been a super coach staple for me, definitely. But I reckon Meek had his measure this game, and I think that made a big difference. North, it's been really tough. We've had the George Wardlaw concussion. That's his third
Mm-hmm.
concussion in 12 months. So that's actually quite a significant concern because he's a good player. I know he possibly hasn't been as good as what people thought, but I think he's doing a good job. But to have another concussion, that's going to be several weeks out now, I suspect, and because you can't muck around with that. Nick Larkey, 5 goals.
Mm-hmm.
He was almost working solo up forward there and doing his best to keep them in it. But that goal from Nick Watson out of the centre
Mm-hmm.
bounce, like somebody defend, please. It was just frustrating where you're just going, come on, guys. It just made the game almost unwatchable if you weren't a Hawks fan.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you, and I have several really good North fans, and I wanted to reach out and give them virtual hugs because just the Jekyll and Hyde nature of them. There's several teams that I consider Jekyll and Hyde teams this year. Port Adelaide is another one where it's like I don't know what I'm getting each week. Like there are teams I know what I'm going to get. I know what I'm going to get from Collingwood. I know what I'm going to get from Adelaide. I know what I'm going to get from Brisbane. I know what I'm going to get from Geelong. There are teams like West Coast. There's teams like Port Adelaide. There's teams like North. I don't know what I'm getting each week because sometimes I get really good football. Sometimes I get really crap football. And that's the frustrating part about it is I don't know. Like I go into each week kind of going like I feel like I'm flipping a coin. Which side do I get? Do I get the good side heads or do I get the bad side tails? I just don't know. And another performance where I look at it and I go, this is a ripe game for North. A Hawthorn team kind of struggling, not playing the greatest football. This was a great opportunity to get on a run, to kind of show the green shoots that everybody's talking about, and then you lay that egg. God, that was frustrating. And like, yeah, I'm not even a North supporter and I'm frustrated. I can only imagine what North supporters and again, I went on social media. I know several and many of them, they're expressing their frustration quite vividly because I get it. You saw some great things in previous games and you thought, okay, here we go. And again, it's like they go, oh, we can't do that, fall over. And it's just very, very frustrating. So I don't know. So we'll move on to a game that was surprisingly competitive despite the final score. And I know Lori and I talked about this pre-mic that I tuned into this game and I could not believe the score at the time. I think I got it. It was only an 8 point lead for Collingwood, and it was in the third quarter. And it was like, what? 8 point lead? Collingwood against West Coast. Like it just brain exploded. Just could not expect it. This West Coast performance was fantastic.
Yeah.
Kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter, but when you're defending a really good team really well, sometimes you just don't have enough legs. They did everything they possibly could. Collingwood get the win by 29, 88-59. But again, this is a fantastic defensive performance for 3 quarters of this game. The final quarter was when Collingwood, the class, the skill, and the talent finally came to fruition in that final term. But man, hats off to West Coast. They did everything they possibly could. I don't think they can really look at themselves and blame themselves for this. They took a premiership side and took them to the wire. They just didn't have enough in the end. So again, good on you, West Coast. I think they're starting to figure it out again. Let's see in the next couple of weeks if it absolutely falls in his face or not. We'll have to see. And Collingwood, they did what they needed to do. They kind of were in second gear for most of this game, put it into third for just enough to get themselves a nice lead, then right back into neutral and cruise the rest of the way. So this pie is looking dangerous and not getting tested. So, which I think even Fly's probably got to be happy with that because no injuries. He's getting guys some time. He's getting some youngsters into his group. Right now, he's looking like a genius of the competition because everything is falling Fly's way.
Well, I'm hoping that they're peaking a little bit early and that it's all downhill from here. But you never know. But look, great effort from the Eagles. First versus what 18th, and they really they McWalter will not question at all their effort. They were outstanding. I thought Baker was fantastic. It was really lovely to see Charlie West and Job Shanahan, the two debutants, one from each team, kick their first goals in their first games. That was just a really nice um, thing to experience for them. Uh, it was such an enjoyable first half. West Coast were up at the quarter time and the half time, and God, that felt good.
Mhm.
The second half was just, oh, come on, guys, you can do it. But then it just sort of got away from them. But that's okay. They're really starting to show some green shoots. You know, they've had a tough week. They've had Jeremy McGovern medically retired, which would have had quite an impact on structure and just the mentoring and that sort of on-field coaching that someone with the experience that Jeremy had to not have him out there would have been quite tough for them. But they did really well. Um, Dacos did Dacos things. Pendles at 37, I think he is, 36, 37, just played a classy game and showed us why he's still going because he can still go. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes next season as well. His body's doing really well, and he just doesn't look like slowing down anytime soon. No, look, the other thing I did enjoy was number 42 for the Eagles, Harry Edwards down back. He really had quite a good game. Was a bit frustrating as a health professional watch him ignore the doctor for about 10 minutes after a head knock. Who they were trying to get him off, and he just ran away from the doctor. So I wasn't too happy about that. But he was obviously well enough to come back on once they eventually dragged him. So they had to stop the game to get him off. But no, it was good that he got all cleared and was back out there. And I thought he did a really good job down back in what's really a really tough game for the backs for West Coast.
Yeah, no, 100% with you on that one. But I'm not I said it a few weeks ago. I said, are the Pies peaking too early? Are they pulling a Sydney from last year where they almost played their best footy too early? So we'll have to see. Honestly, I want to say this also too is that the fact that I've said it a couple of times, I really agree with it. I think Steel Sidebottom and Scott Pendlebury found the fountain of youth in the off season. They have to have
Yeah.
because man, is it incredible to see two really good veterans playing like they're 25 again. Like it's kind of scary to see it, but I'm happy for them. I'm happy for Pendleton and Steel
Yeah.
Side Bottom. Class personified when it comes to it.
Yeah.
Respect the heck out of both of them, both fantastic footballers. And to see them doing what they're doing as experienced as they are, I'm not going to say old because I'm older than both of them, so I really can't say anything. It's fantastic to see. They're playing their roles in a system. Like I said, I think Fly has been fantastic for the Pies when it
Yeah.
comes to it. He's really handled the veterans along with the youngsters in almost the perfect way. It's hard to argue that things haven't fallen for him in every way he possibly needs. So it's going to be interesting again to see how they go. Their run home and then into the finals. It'll be fun. But again, it's fantastic to see absolute class in Steel Side Bottom and Scotty Pendlebury playing some really good football in this particular time period of their career. So the next one, I mean, it's plain and simple. Pros good, Tigers, not so much. Crows get a 68-point win, 122-54. And ladies and gentlemen, I've said it a couple of times on the podcast, and I'm going to say it again. Keep an eye out on this Crows team. Keep an eye out. They could be quite the dark horse come finals time because they have marking, they have goal kicking, they have speed, they have ball movement, and they have a
Mhm.
defense that is starting to play better and better each game. And to see the emergence of Dan Curtin, and I think anybody was keeping an eye on that draft, I said from the beginning, the Crows got a steal when they drafted Dan Curtin when they did. They moved up to draft him, and he is starting to pay it back in spades. Another fantastic game by the young winger. I cannot wait to see this Crows team go. Fantastic. Again, Richmond, we kind of expected these type of performances. We knew they're going to be on it. They're going to be an on and off like a traffic light. It's going to happen. But what an incredible performance by the Crows. They look magnificent, and I am so excited to watch this Crows team because I think they're going to turn some heads through the end of this home and away season and come finals time because they've got skill on every line, great ball movement. They've figured it out, and boy, is it fun to watch Tex Walker, even at his mature age, playing some really fantastic football.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. I think they're sort of dogs, but in another season or two's time, they're starting to build those skillful players along each line, and they're really starting to build a nice portfolio of games. They're building really well, and they look like they are aiming to peak in September, and you can see that coming. Phil Thorpe's such a great addition to that team. He's really built nicely over the last couple of seasons, and really is a presence forward to complement Tex. Um, Daniel Curtin, 2 goals, 26 disposals. The Curtin parents were quite busy that day. They had his younger brother playing for Western Australia against the Allies. I watched that game as well. So they were a very busy, they had a very
Mhm.
busy day that day. But what do we think about Tom Lynch and Jordan Butts?
5 games. He's my favorite part is the people that are trying to defend this, and I'm just like, it's inexcusable. Completely agree. Joey Mudd can't Kenyon free crack in first crack. This is inexcusable, and if this is anything, if it's less than 4 games, the AFL is a joke when it comes to actually wanting to take care of concussion because Jordan Butts is one lucky boy. He is one very, very lucky boy because he was just close enough to Lynch that this swinging haymaker kind of nicked him. It got
Yeah.
him, but it didn't fully get him because if Butts is a step further back or his head is fully straight up, Lynch connects with his jaw and he's
Yeah.
done for at least 3 or 4 matches. Like I'm not even gonna lie. I get that forwards can get frustrated, and I get that sometimes frustration sometimes comes out in the field, but this is inexcusable behavior, absolutely deplorable, putrid vision that we have to continue to see. He's going to be a lucky boy if he's under 5 games. I'm going to say it right now. I think it's going to be fun. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be 5 or 6, and it will be well worth it. And again, I get Ooze is trying to defend his players. I get the fans that are trying to defend it, but you just can't. You can't. The vision just makes any kind of attempt to try to say that he was frustrated. No, that's just. I'm sorry. It is a weak argument. He'll get 5. He should get 5. I think that he's going to be a whipping. He's going to kind of be a whipping boy. Plus, the fact that he does have previous discretions, I think, isn't going to help him. It's a little bit like Toby Green. It's kind of a Toby tax. There's always a little bit added on because of having that discretion before. I think it's 5, and he'll for him cop it. Go sit down because you're lucky. It's not more. If it's 5, you're lucky
Oh,
it's not more because if he tags Butts correctly, Butts is out for at least 2 to 3 weeks, and it really screws with Adelaide. So again, Butts is going to consider himself very lucky because it could have been far, far worse if Lynch actually hit the target he was aiming for.
Oh, look, Adam Muse must just be absolutely ropeable behind the scenes. Uh, he has been sent straight to tribunal. They're looking for 5 weeks or more.
Yep.
Um, but this is a long line of um, hot-headedness from Tom Lynch, and look, he hasn't been able to get on the field due to injury over the last couple of seasons. He is a senior player at Richmond. He should know better, but he does not seem to, and he doesn't seem to be able to learn from past indiscretions. So yeah, I think a long stint on the Pines in order, just to give him one last go and say, mate, if you don't clean up, we might be looking elsewhere.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Again, I hate when games are marred by situations like this because, again, I thought Adelaide were sensational in this game. Again, Adelaide did what they needed to do. They got a good
Yeah,
percentage booster onto an
yeah,
already solid side. Again, it was so much fun to watch this Crows team again. You see Deligo, Dawson, Laird, Keys. Just there's so many really talented. Like I said, it's the less known names, the Worrells, the Butts, the hinges of this Adelaide Crows defense that have been fun to watch because I think they've played really good football despite not
yeah,
I don't think they get the plaudits as much for being as good a defensive side as they have been at times because they've had times where they've had to show up big because the ball is constantly there. So again, Crow is fantastic. There are green shoots at Richmond. Sammy Laylor is playing well. You're getting Blight. You're getting some of these youngsters that have come in. Jaunty Fall. I think it looks to be. We still haven't seen the Smiley kid, who's another one of those draftings. He's been fighting with injury,
yeah.
but I think
Next year.
yeah, I think he'll come in. Big body midfielder, going to be fun to watch him again. I think this was kind of what everybody expected with Richmond. They're gonna have games. They're gonna nip somebody because somebody's gonna take them lightly because they're a young side. They're scrappy. They get after you. They don't have the overall talent that most of the clubs do. We'll be honest. Anybody that looks at their list, it's the truth. They've got
Yeah,
young, up and coming talent that I think they're going to mature over the next couple of years. And then watch out because they got a nice little
yeah,
core and more draft picks still to come in this next draft as well. It'll be
absolutely.
fascinating to watch how it goes. So, and then to end the round, I watched this game and this had me intrigued the entire time because the score is flattering for Fremantle because this was terrifying for two and a half, almost 3 quarters because St. Kilda took the lead and kind of held on, and Fremantle just they kept chasing their tail the entire game, kept finding ways to mess up. St. Kilda punished them whenever they made mistakes. But Fremantle battled back in the fourth quarter. Luke Jackson, you absolute beauty, definitely showing that he is a unicorn, just like Sam Darcy, just like yeah, Sam Darcy. Sean Darcy, the new thinner, more improved Sean Darcy, is starting to find some form as well. And to see the two big men absolutely take over this game. But I don't want to discredit Rowan Marshall because I thought Rowan Marshall actually had played a fantastic game against these two monsters that is Luke Jackson and
He
Sean Darcy.
absolutely did.
An incredible game. Nasiah Wangini Miller, again, if that guy does not have an All Australian jacket on his shoulders come the end of the season, it will be a travesty as well as he's playing. It was a fantastic game of football. The Dockers do just enough, get a 12-point win, 81-69, but a fascinatingly fun game. But it's got to be frustrating for Fremantle because the Saints wiped the floor with you earlier in the year. And early on in this game, it looks like it was going to happen again. Fremantle got it done. Again, seeing Shai Bolton come back and playing some really good football. Sarong and Brayshaw are absolutely incredible for them. Josh Tracy playing everywhere on the ground, it seemed like, especially in that fourth quarter when he went back and had
Yeah,
several important spoils or
yeah.
plays that really helped that out. So Fremantle starting to find some form. Watch out for this Western Australian side because they've got some good pieces in places. The only thing that was sad was is finding out that Nat Fife was the sub,
Oh
but
no.
is hurt.
So definitely the most enjoyable game for me on the weekend. Uh, it's just the story of Nat Fife's latter part of his career that he can get injured having a jog at half time as the sub. That's about as sad a calf injury as I've heard, or calf awareness. Hopefully, it's not an actual injury. They're going to give it a scan today or tomorrow. you got to feel for Nat Five. He was such a class player early on in his career, and it's been disappointing how it's panned out. The one name I didn't hear you mention was Jordan Clark. What a game! That kid is a star.
Hmm.
And I think he'll be certainly pushing for All Australian squad, and then we'll just see what happens from there. But stellar game from him. He's got a bit of fire in his belly too, so he's entertaining to watch. And in terms of Josh Tracy, you're right. He led as a forward, but he also led by pushing back in the fourth quarter as a spare. He did that chase down tackle on Nazaya Wanganeen, which was
Hmm.
unbelievable when you see the footage of where he came from to effect that tackle. Outstanding. Really enjoyed this game. And I was hoping we could have had a draw. We
Hmm.
were so close to a draw in the
Yep.
last few moments of that game, but in the end, Luke Jackson got the after siren goal.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it was a fantastic. Yeah, they don't mean no disrespect, Jordan. Didn't mean any disrespect. He's just been so consistently doing that off the halfback flank that you almost kind of take him for granted a little bit like what Nasaya does for St. Kilda. Like you expect 25 disposals and 600, 700 meters gained because that's just what they do. That's just how effective they are. And the occasional goal here or there because they'll push up defensively, find a kick out that is intercept marked and have a crack and kick it through the goalpost. So yeah, so Fremantle fans, that was no slide on Jordan Clark. Jordan Clark again, fantastic game. But it was such a fun game to watch. And I agree. Like I was sitting there going, when they had the rush behind it, put it to six, it was like the draw's back on the table. I was sitting
It
there
was
going,
exciting.
are we gonna see the like an almost fantastic way to end the bye with a draw?
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah, so that
And
was go ahead.
the other two things I wanted to mention quickly was how fun was Rowan Marshall's soccer goal.
That was
That was
fantastic.
so fun. I loved that. And I think Alex Taru might be my son's new favorite player. He's such an excitement machine down back. So there was just so much. There's a lot of potential there in that St Kilda team. I know they're not thought of highly at the moment, but I can see where players are starting to come together, and it won't be this season, but it might be next season or the one after where they really start roaring up the ladder and making good teams have to work really hard to earn a win over them.
No, 100% with you on that one. So the Rowan Marshall, like they were talking about that for the next 10 minutes after that goal happened. For sure. And Alex Taru, I cannot wait to see this young man. I know he was a highly sought after draft pick. It was one that I wished could have fell to this one with his abilities via foot. So it's going to be fun because we haven't even seen his best skill. I think he's a really good kick of the footy. So for him to he kind of rolled up his sleeves and he goes, "Okay, Ross, whatever you need me to do, if that means spoiling the ball to make sure that our defense stays structurally sound." He did it, and I can't. I'm with you. Cannot wait to see this young man grow under Ross Lyon. That's going to be a lot of fun. So that is it. That is all 7 games. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, finally, the buys are over. Thank you. Good night. Goodbye, byes. Thank you. We will get 9 games of footy for the rest of the season. Thank you. Now let's move on. Burning questions here, and we'll start on the negative, just the tiniest bit. I'm going to ask you, Lori, as the footy fan that you are, which team, in your opinion, is in more trouble right now, Carlton or North?
Carlton, because we expect more from them. The differential between what we expect and what we're getting is just so stark at Carlton. North, we're still not expecting a heck of a lot from them. We know Alistair Clarkson's got he's going to need 3 years from now to really build them up to something that is competitive and sustainably competitive. But Carlton has big names, big signings that are worth a fortune, and they are not giving us any bang for buck whatsoever. It'd be a very miserable place to be a Carlton supporter right now. At least North supporters know what they have at the moment. It's frustrating. It's been way too long for them. Um, both sides have great coaches with great pedigrees. Michael Voss as a player in particular, but he was a well-regarded assistant coach at Port as well. So the coaching wise, I don't think there's an issue at either club, but they're just not pulling it all together for some reason. And that must be incredibly frustrating, particularly for Carlton, who honestly I thought would be pushing this year to make a decent charge, maybe even top six. And that clearly isn't going to happen in season 2025.
Yeah, no, I'm 100%. I'm 100% with you on your reasonings for Carlton. But let me make a tiny case for North here. Okay. And I agree with you. I think I'm like 90% more on the Carlton side, but there is a tiny bit of North here. And it's more of because I agree with the fans' frustration is that when Clarko got the job, and again, has Clarko been able to be the head coach of this team the entire time he's been there? No. Okay, we had the racism scandal with Hawthorn. Again, I get it. Clarko, in my opinion, especially like I'm gonna throw a little bit of American here. If that racism scandal would have happened here in the States, Clarko would have been fired. I will be honest with you. He's lucky to have the job. Okay. Has he fully been there? No. Okay. So I will give him a tiny bit of a pass on that. But the bag of goods that North supporters were sold when Clarko was hired was this is the best coach we've ever seen in the game of footy in the last 40 years. Okay.
Mm.
He has this hugely talented roster with so many top 10 picks, so many talented players. They've had some signings that have been what many people would say is game-changing signings. Griffin Logue at the time. I know there's a couple other Aiden Core coming down from GWS. Really, where have they progressed? That is my
Mm.
question. And North supporters are starting to ask those questions because where has the team really progressed? Georgie Wardlaw, I know he's fought with injury, but really, has his game progressed despite the injury? Many people would say no. Harry Sheezel
Mm.
really has been one of the few Harry Sheezel and Nick Larkey have really been the shining lights at North. If you
Yeah.
really think about it, those have really been it. After that, Aiden Core, Griffin Logue, the signings really haven't panned out. In fact, there are some North fans that say that they're almost worse than if you just threw a youngster. I mean, Toby Peak is getting plaudits, and Toby Peak was a mid-season draftee that was a cast off from the Sydney Swans who had to go to Glenelg, win a premiership at Glenelg before he got signed with North. Okay. So Toby Pink is their best defender, yet you've signed Griffin Logue from Fremantle and Aiden Core from GWS. But Toby Pink is your best defender.
Mm.
There's a problem here. At least
Yeah.
if you look at it by signings, you would think the two signings would be the better players. Okay. You sign you draft McKercher. McKercher had took almost a year before he's finally started to fight it. Now he's finally starting to see form, which is great, but that's too long. That's too long for a top 20 pick, for a top 10
Yeah.
pick to take so long
Mm.
to get into the game. And I know, again, it's first season. I get it, but there are players, if they're taken in the top five, the reasonable expectation is they will be a good player that can make an impact that particular year. Xavier Jersma has disappeared from North Island, and now Joey put it out on one of the shows that I was that he's disgruntled and maybe wants out of North. You already
Yeah.
lost Jason Horn Francis, who was disgruntled and left the club. Yes, a little bit prior to Clarko arriving, but even still,
Yeah.
another top level player leaving the club. So I have just as many questions because the guy, the guy in Alistair Clarkson is not doing what is a reasonable expectation of the guy as the coach of the last
Mm.
20 years. There has been no progression of this North Melbourne Football Club. And that's not a harsh criticism. That is the reality. If you ask North fans, that is the frustration that's growing now. And I'm starting to see people turn on Clarko because this really is on the coaching staff. This is not on the players anymore because if the players aren't progressed because the coach is making them better footballers, you can't make a rock not a rock. So
Mm.
I don't know what to say here. So I can make an argument for both. There's a stronger argument for Carlton because, as you said, expectations coming into the season. Finals team, maybe a dark horse grand final, maybe a dark horse grand finalist and flag contender because of, on paper, Crippa, Chera,
Mm.
Hewitt, Mackay, Kerno. Sod, Doherty. I can rattle them off. Tons and tons of Wiedering, superstar talent on this Blues team. North, you can rattle them off, but you almost always put the caveat of young, still growing, still hasn't really come up to his potential yet. So that's why I agree with you. Carlton, for me, gets the vote, but I can make an argument for North. And that's the sad part about it. Like, and maybe it's, I look at it is that Voss is being questioned as a coach. Well, why can't we question Clarko? Why can't we question him?
Yeah,
I legitimately want to question him because again, if I'm being told I'm being sold this bag of goods that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I get a toad, what have I accomplished? So that's I think that's more of the frustration for me. So do you kind of see where I'm going here? Because again,
absolutely. I mean, and they do have some good players. Cherry's a great player. Paul Curtis was having a stellar start to the season.
they've kind
They
of fallen off a
have
cliff,
some
and that's the
cattle
hard part.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've got to have supply, don't you? To it does make it challenging, but uh, yeah, look, their performance on the weekend was it was like watching possibles versus probables, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Hawthorn just ran around them. And I just didn't see that gut effort that we saw from West Coast, even though West Coast is still sitting on 4 points, one win.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't see the
They gave
gut
it a
effort
crack.
from North.
We're using the
Yeah,
ugly season. They
absolutely.
gave it a crack where North just kind of went
They
Hawthorn kind
didn't.
of booted it early and you just they kind of rolled over. And
Yeah,
that's the hard part about it. And
yeah,
I don't want to say like there's not good player. Like Tristan Xeri has stepped up and I think legitimately has arguments to be an all Australian ruck argument with Max Gawn
yeah.
and Luke Jackson. I think those are the three right now. Brody Grundy's charging. I just don't know if he's got enough time to
Mm,
put himself in that thing. So I think it's Gawn, Xeri, and Jackson. I think are going to be the three that are going to be arguing for the All Australian this year. So you've got some superstars. I think Sheasel has had a really good season again on a side, and Larkey, he's always been that good at kicking goals despite
yeah,
the lack of it. Like if he catches it, he's kicking it. Like that's how accurate
yeah,
he is. Like that's the one thing
yeah,
I love about him. He just needs a little bit more. And I don't want to go to it, but I almost kind of feel like Paul Curtis has really fallen off the map since his suspension. Like since he got
yes,
that
true.
suspension, it's like the aggression was kind of taken out of him a little bit. Cam Zerha's had some moments, but again, he's like Mercury. Sometimes he's up or down. That's the part that's kind of frustrating. I I see tons of great things at North, and maybe it's
Yeah,
a little bit of the coaching in me. I want to mold this group. I want Clarko to do that. So I think that's why I'm a little bit more harsh on Clarko at North than I am at Voss because with Voss, they've had these issues. Many of the issues that are poking its head out are stuff that were pre Voss. Okay,
mm,
issues with kicking, issues with consistency. That type of stuff happened to Carlton before Voss was there. But again, Larko is one of those. Maybe I hold him in a high esteem because I was told he wins four premierships in Hawthorn. That this guy is here, not here.
yeah.
And right now, he's not coaching here. He's coaching here, and I think that's the frustrating part for me on that one. So
Mm.
had a little bit of. I love that discussion because again, I can. Some people look at it so differently, and again, I have a couple of really good North fans, and I can tell just seeing their tweets and interacting with them, they're frustrated. They're very, very frustrated because this is not what they were expecting. I think they expected the team to have their struggles. They're going to. They're
Yeah,
still, again, a young side. But when you have games where they beat Melbourne and a lot of people were up and about, and then the next two games, right back to earth. Then another big win over Carlton. Again, how impressive is that with the way Carlton is really playing nowadays? Okay, I'll give you that. But then again, another crater back into the earth with a couple of games after. And I think that's the frustrating part on the North for the North supporters. And I get it. And I get it. I hope Barco gets his figured out. I really do. But right now I'm not seeing what we were sold. And that's the frustrating part as a fan of coaches and love seeing great coaches. Dude, pull your magic out or get out of there. Go let a coach that actually is going to make progression. That's I guess how I kind of see it. So
and
let's
what's
have
scary with
go ahead.
oh sorry, sorry.
No,
What's
no.
scary with North is when you're down the bottom of the table and you've got the 19th team Tassie coming in a couple of years' time, that's going to change the draft and
I hope.
make it
I
very
hope.
difficult to find
I'm
talent in the draft, right? So that's
Yep.
not where you're going to go to try to build your team up. So there's a lot of worries for those teams down the bottom,
Yep.
and North in particular, who's been down there for quite a while now.
Yep. Well, and Colby McKercher is a Tasmanian, and many people say that the Tasmanian team, if they come in, again, I'm gonna put that caveat because right now the nothing is looking good, and that's the hard part. As a footy supporter, and really want Tassie to come in,
Yeah,
the signs are not good, and that's the part that's frustrating. But I agree, like North's in trouble because Colby McKercher is a Tasmanian. Many people again say the Tassie team they're going to try to go after as many Tasmanians as they can.
absolutely.
That's a huge
Yeah.
draw for Colby McKercher to go back home and play for his not
Yeah.
his state's team. That'd be fantastic for that. Let's finish the negative part of the podcast, and then we'll have some fun with the last question. Is as you can kind of tell how I've said the entire thing, not been happy with the buys because they've drug on and on and on. So as a footy fan, I've asked this every week that the buys are going because each footy fan is different. The buys are finally over. In your opinion, is the buy period too long?
Yes. It's way too long. I'd rather just have a buy period over 2 weekends, half one weekend, half the next, so that there's some footy to watch, and then we're over and done with it when we move forward from there. These partial buy weekends, oh, geez, it makes it hard on the super coach team.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it really inconsistent and it is good to have. I don't mind having a buy round for my home team, even just to give me a weekend off so I can go away and not think about the Lions for one weekend. But I'd be happy for them to compress it into 2 weeks, half half, and be done with it and move forward.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. The only thing though is that with 18 teams, if you did half and half, you have nine. So you wouldn't have the even numbers to be able to do that. So I think it'd have to be 10 and 8, which is
Yeah,
fine because then you'd have 4 games one week, 5 games the next. Again, it's a light schedule, but I'd be okay with that.
Mhm.
I think honestly, I said this, and I don't think this is going to happen because the AFL is stubborn as a bull mule, which really frustrates me. I think opening round should be adjusted to where everybody plays and it's just round one.
Yeah,
But you put your pride. I've thrown this idea. I don't know if you've heard this idea, but this is my idea for opening round, to where you don't have to do these extra buys because you have 8 teams playing and 10 teams sitting at home. Make opening round northern round. And basically, what I mean by that is Thursday night footy, Friday night footy, Saturday night footy, and the prime time game on Sunday are all the northern state teams. So say it like this. So Gold Coast face Hawthorn on Thursday night footy at the Gold Coast. Okay. Friday night footy, GWS v Collingwood at MG Stadium. Okay. Saturday night footy, Sydney v the Western Bulldogs at the SCG. Saturday night footy. Sunday, the Brisbane Lions host the Geelong Cats on the last game of the round. And then sprinkle in the other games on Saturday and Sunday afternoon to where everybody plays. But the prime time spots, the biggest spots, are held for the northern clubs because they get the primetime viewing eyes and it's good for them. That's round one. You then have, like I said, you have the Western, the SA guys get their home game with gather rounds.
yeah,
Honestly, I would love to see them figure out a way to have a WA round to where
yeah,
everybody's out in WA. Like not necessarily a gather round, but just like most of the teams are in WA, or find a way to play a game in WA just once, just to kind of even out. I think to even out the fixture and everything, because that's the one thing I
yeah.
will give the WA clubs a lot of kudos on this. They could really piss and bitch and moan and whinge and suck all they want. Sorry, trying to use Australian terms here, since the audience is primarily Australian here.
You did well.
Yeah, I know. I got him in. I got him in. But just to even out the competition, because we know, everybody knows that the competition is primarily centered around Victoria. Okay, the 10 teams that are in Victoria, the 9 teams in Melbourne. The league is going to be primarily really centered around that. So they're going to have an advantage because less travel for those teams. So find a way to balance everything out as much as you possibly can. It's impossible. It's never going to be perfect. But I've said I think the WA teams deserve an extra home game, if not two, at home. Make the Victorian teams go out there. They don't travel very
Yeah.
much. Make them go out to WA. Give them, so if you have, again, so we have 23 game schedule. Okay. Give them 13 home games and 10 road games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then they don't have to leave WA as much. So it saves the body content and maybe even makes it to where you have less of these kids going, oh, I want to go back home to Victoria. I don't want to stay in WA. Like, give them a reason to like it because they get to play more games at home out in WA than the Victorian teams. Because in the long run, the Victorian teams, when they play each other, you don't really have to go anywhere. So it's really not a road game. So
That's
I'd
right.
love this.
Marvel is not an away game, Collingwood.
Well, again, I think Collingwood and Essendon should go down to Geelong, but that's a personal opinion of mine. Geelong built the stadium. I don't care how what the capacity is. Go. You go down there. Whoop-de-doo. Your fans don't get to go. Okay. I've said this. Then I'll finish my rant. There are over 330 million people over here in the States. Okay. There's probably over 2 million 49ers fans. When the Super Bowl is at a 60,000 seat arena, you want to know what they don't do? They don't go, well, fans are going to miss the game. No, they go, pay for it or you're not going. Plain and simply. You don't get tickets, but that's life. Sorry. It's the
Yeah.
one thing I'm again, and I'm not trying to bash Australian culture, especially footy culture, but disappointment happens. You're not going to get to go to all the games. That's reality. And until the AFL understands that, and I get the AFL wants to make money. I get it. Okay. That's why they want
Yeah.
the games at the MCG because, hey, we sell more tickets, we make more money. That's
Mhm.
great. But don't punish the Geelong Cats because
Yeah.
they play in a 40,000 seat arena. Collingwood doesn't finish as high as Geelong. That game's down in GMHBA Stadium. Deal with it. That's the way it goes.
100%.
You're going to sell out the game anyways. So I really don't see the complaint. That's my frustration that I have. It's like Geelong gets punished because their stadium isn't as big, so they got to play Collingwood in Melbourne, though they're the home team. Make that make sense?
Hmm.
It just does. It doesn't happen anywhere else. I get it, but come on. But that's the way the rules were written because the rules were written to get everything at the MCG as much as possible. So you can't change that. But
Yeah.
it is a frustration of mine. Like they have a home field advantage, let them have it.
Yeah,
If a
absolutely.
really big team's got to go down there, they got to deal with it because that's the way the cookie crumbles. Tell Collingwood to play better. Tell Essendon to play better. Tell Richmond to play better because if they play better, then they get to play the games at the MCG. If not,
Yeah,
you got to play Geelong.
definitely.
Go down there. If the Western Bulldogs have a better record, play the game at Marvel because that's their home field.
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing, but I guess it just can't be inconvenient. So sorry. My interstate, you know all about it, the interstate rants when it comes to, I won't even get to academies because you and I, they won't like our opinion on the academies because I still to this day say if you want to get rid of the academies, it's like, okay, then you actually have to travel.
Yeah.
Deal or father sons go bye-bye. Want to make
Yeah.
that deal? Because I don't think you are. Especially
Yeah.
Collingwood. Imagine if Nick Dacos wouldn't have been able to go to Collingwood because he had to go into the regular draft pool. Again, Victorians are really good. They complain when something goes against them, but when it helps them, then they're quiet as a church mouse.
Are you sure you don't live in Australia, Donny?
I have Aussie tendencies. Sometimes I think I was born in the wrong country. So
I think so.
because I'm getting like literally my wife was laughing at me really quick off mic here. My wife was laughing at me because I'm sitting there looking at Willow because you have Australia versus the West Indies and India versus England. Both test matches start Wednesday. And I'm excited because I can watch test cricket during the day. So I'm a very unique American for sure. Like I'm excited for test. I love test cricket. I think it's fantastic. I know. It's like, how can you stand it? Because surprisingly to most people is I get the tactics. I'm learning. I even purchased a cricket video game. I'm learning the sport as much as I
Oh
can.
dear.
It's so much fun. and I had fun this week teaching some of my friends at work some of the basics of cricket. I
Oh,
still don't get all the fielding positions. They right over my head on that one, but like, oh, I have no idea what's the difference between fine leg and backward point. I have no clue what you're talking about, but I'll figure it out. I'll get it figured out. So now that I've
yeah.
had my Aussie moment, we'll wind. We'll go to it. The final question and burning questions is always about my co-host's favorite team. So I'll ask this of you, Lori, as the Lions supporter extraordinaire that you are you confident the Lions can make a serious run at defending their flag?
I am semi-confident. Um, Look, if you compared where we are this season versus where we were at the same point last season, I'm really happy. I think we're sitting second still, but we're certainly in the
Mhm.
top four with points. Um, and we have not played our best football. We had a great game against Geelong, was super happy with that performance down at Cardinia, and that knocked off our final um, checklist item in terms of where we haven't won for a very long time. I think it's been 23 years or something ridiculous since we'd won
Mhm.
at Geelong. So I'm really excited for people like Logan Morris because Joe was a big out for us.
Mhm.
I miss Joe. I loved Joe. I know he's a divisive character in terms of footy. Some people love him and some people hate him. I thought he was fantastic. Um, I have doubts on our midfield. I'm seeing Lockie Neal get controlled a little bit more by our opposition. I feel like they've worked him out. Dunks is not having quite the impact that he was having in previous years. Um, but then in other ways, we've managed to sort of patchwork the team as injuries have popped up and popped down, and we're still here. We've got Darcy Fort, who's our second rucking pretty well, doing enough of a job there to keep us ticking over. And we seem to be able to finish off. Charlie Cameron has not fired this season yet, really.
Mhm.
He's had some very quiet games and he hasn't really found his way. Oh, maybe the last game he found his way in through defensive actions, but we haven't seen the best from most of our players. I'm really excited to see Zach Bailey do a lot better this season, and we're starting to see a bit more from Cam Rayner. So again, those next rung down players, Hugh McCluggage, love Hugh. He's just such a class act, and he's stepped up where Lockie Neal perhaps has dropped away a little bit this season. So we have enough troops on the ground. But we need them all to fire at the same time for us to have the same kind of outcome as what we had last year.
Yeah, that's the crazy part about it is to think about is last year you were sitting outside the top eight, but you were starting to kind of find your form right about now. You're starting to win a few games. You're starting to kind of see things come together. This year, you won a lot of games early by coming back, and I think it was one of the most popular talking points when it came to Brisbane was is that they keep finding ways to go down double figures. I think in six
Yeah.
of the first 8 games, you went down by double figures at one time before halftime and found a way to come back and win. So they're winning games of football. I agree with you. I think Lockie Neal's been tagged out of far too many games personally, but you've
Yeah.
seen both Ashcrofts, Jasper Fletcher. You're seeing impacts. Dane Zarko is a little bit like Sidebottom and Pendlebury. He found the fountain of youth with them. He must have been on the trip as well because he's having one of his best seasons he's ever had. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he finds himself with an All Australian blazer at the end of the year because he's been magnificent in the back.
Yeah.
Is he a great defender? No, but he does what he does and he does it very,
Yeah.
very well. Darcy Ford has come in. I'm hearing reports that I don't like that unfortunately Oscar McInerney's injury issues could be career ending. And that's
Oh,
frustrating because Omac has been fantastic for the club. But Darcy Fort has been exactly what you need. He gets it done, he gets around the ground, he's a competitor, he fights. He may not be the most talented ruck, but he's serviceable. And especially with the
yeah.
midfield that you have, you kind of make up for it. I mean, Dunkley, you've got Neal, you've got both the Ashcrofts, you've got McCluggage, Reyna and Bailey can go through the middle. So there's a ton of things to be happy.
Yeah.
And the scary part is, as you said, Charlie Cameron still really hasn't fired a shot. Imagine when he does. Logan
Yeah.
Morris is showing more and more like he could be that step up guy for that. And Eric Hipland still really hasn't come to the forefront, which I think you kind of hoped you would see after Danaher's retirement. So there's a lot of things to still be confident with the Lions. I agree with you. There's still a few things that I'm not liking, but again, I trust Coach Fagan. I trust him. He's won a premiership. This is a very talented team. Kitty Coleman still really hasn't fully gotten healthy.
No.
Since his ACL injury, he has that one appearance. He did pretty well, but again, unfortunately got injured again. So imagine if he can get healthy come finals time with that incredible
Yeah.
kick that he has. This is still a very dangerous Lions team. I'm not super confident, but I'm going to
Yeah.
say this is an experienced side, a lot of premiership medals hanging around their necks when it comes to it.
Yeah.
They're going to be dangerous, especially if they can get a little more healthy come finals time. And with still 8 weeks left, definitely a possibility. So I think the Lions they're in it with a shout. I will tell you that right now. I think Collingwood, Gold Coast, Brisbane, Adelaide, Geelong, I think are the teams really battling for that premiership flag this year again. How injuries go over these last 8 rounds, plus now that we don't have the buys, everybody's playing. So the ladder will even out. We do have the Gold
Yeah.
Coast Essendon game that still needs to play, so
Yeah, that's
that's
true.
gonna really manipulate things a little bit. But I'm fascinated to watch this Lions team because on their day, one of the best teams in the competition, and they
Yeah.
can hold their own against Geelong and against Collingwood, which for many people are two of the premier teams in the competition this year. So I'm excited for that. So that is it for burning questions. Always fun to chat footy. I got a little bit of cricket in there, so I had a little bit of fun with that. I cannot wait for July 2nd when they play the West Indies. It's always fun to say it a little bit with a little bit of the West Indian accent is always fun. So we will get on to the team of the round, this particular round, and I need to get it pulled up on here we go. So I got it all set up. As the coach that I am, we will start with defenders and work our way forward. I know, Lori, you've been on the podcast, so you kind of know how I kind of do this. So we'll start off on the fullback line. I'll give my plaudits. Lockie Bramble of the Western Bulldogs absolutely tore the Swans up. Got to give him his salute, sir. So congratulations on being named there. Cal Wilkie of the St. Kilda Saints, again, incredible. I think he's definitely got a huge chance of being the All-Australian fullback this year. I think he's been fantastic. And I get a tip to Lockie Jones of Port Adelaide will be the other fullback. On the halfback line, we see Sam Banks of the Richmond Tigers, Jordan Clark of the Fremantle Dockers, and Messiah Wanganeen Miller of the St. Kilda Saints round out the halfback line. In the center, we have Brody Grundy anchoring as the ruck. On the wings, Joel Frazier and Dan Curtin are the wings. In the center, we see Miles Bergman of the Port Adelaide Power, Collingwood's Nick Dacos, and Tuke Miller of the Gold Coast Suns round out the center midfield. The half forward line, we have Marby Ochoa of the Hawthorn Hawks, Isaac Heaney of the Sydney Swans, and Jake Melksham of the Melbourne Demons. At the full forward line, we have the ever aging, gracefully Jack Dunstan, Adelaide's Riley the Hulk Phil Thorpe, and Nick Larkey of the North Melbourne Kangaroos round out the starting full forward line. On the bench, my defender is Kane Farrell of the Port Adelaide Power.
Yeah.
Luke Jackson of the Fremantle Dockers is my ruck. The midfielder is Brady Hoff of the West Coast Eagles, and the forward is Mitch Georgiades of the Port Adelaide Power. Crazy, you can kick five and you're on the bench because every person that made my team of the week had five or more.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, Joel had five, Heaney had five, Melksham had five, Dunstan had seven, Thilthorpe had five, Larkey had five, Georgiati had five.
That's rough.
Absolutely insane. But hey, I love seeing the bags. The bags of five is absolutely fantastic. And then for those of you
Mm.
that watched the power rankings last week, there is no change. So five, the Western Bulldogs, four, the Geelong Cats, 3, the GWS Giants, 2, Fremantle Dockers, and at 1, the Collingwood Magpies. So power rankings can't change because all the teams that did play won and all the other teams had byes. Cannot decrease you because you don't play. So the power rankings stay the same after this particular round. And here we go. Here we go, Lori. I know we're early. We still haven't seen the injury reports, everything like that, but let's tip 9 games of football. How awesome is it to say we're going to get 9 games of football in the round of footy? Let's jump right into it. First game, really, North Melbourne, Western Bulldogs, Marvel Stadium. What a ripping game to start off the round with. Who do you like?
I think we'll go Bulldogs for that one.
I'll go the Western Bulldogs myself. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope North gives us a little bit of a shock and stays competitive in this game.
Absolutely.
But think the doggies are just going to be a little bit too good. I don't think Toby Pink's going to be able to defend the man that is Sam Darcy. I think he gets himself a bag in this one, and Aaron Naughton might even have himself a day with this defensive core. So I have the doggies in this one. The old rivalry Friday night footy sees the less than impressive Carlton Blues against the very, very up and about Collingwood Magpies. Do we see an upset? Can Carlton throw the cat amongst the pigeons, or are the pies just too good?
No, Carlton are flat as attack at the moment, so that's sadly that'll be a Collingwood win, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm going to tip Collingwood in that one, and that one could get ugly and ugly quickly if
Yeah.
Carlton doesn't step up, pull their bootstraps tight, and have a crack. We'll go out to also on Friday night footy. We see the double Friday night game as we see the West Coast Eagles host the GWS Giants out at Optus Stadium. As much as I would love to see an upset, as much as I would love the West Coast to get another win under their belts, GWS coming back from the bye, perfect opponent,
Yeah.
an opponent you can beat, an opponent that has to travel back from Victoria, just like you have to travel out from Sydney. Giants win this one. I think they're starting to get some of their troops back. Giants win this one. But being in the West Coast, I think the Eagles keep it close. I think a little bit like Collingwood. 3 quarters of the
Yeah.
game, they're in it. Fourth quarter,
Yeah.
Giants class takes over.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll fatigue in the fourth quarter, but yeah, I really hope they get in and give it a good rip because it was so entertaining this weekend.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fascinating one on that one. Let's jump up Saturday afternoon footy at Marvel Stadium under the lid sees Essendon play the Gold Coast Suns. Hardwick's voodoo at Marvel Stadium is over. But does Essendon pull a shocker here, or do the Suns come down and get a much needed win to keep the momentum going? What do you like?
Oh, geez, the Suns look really good against Melbourne, but it was against a pretty insipid Melbourne. Um, yeah, I'm
Tougher
gonna
than
go
you
Gold
think, huh?
Coast. I'm gonna go Gold Coast, but yeah, I think Essendon they're a smoky in that one.
You're reading my mind here, Lori. I'm tipping Gold Coast, but I'm telling everybody if you had to tell me I have to pick an upset, this is
Yeah,
it. Because
yeah,
Essendon play under the roof at Marvel Stadium really well. Gold Coast don't always travel well. Dema hates Marvel Stadium, and for some reason it seeps into his players a little bit. And Gold Coast has already had a House of Horrors at Marvel Stadium at least once this year. So
yeah.
tipping Gold Coast, but will not shock me if Essendon find a way to pull a rabbit out of the hat on that one. So, oh boy, fun one here. GMHBA Stadium as Geelong take on Richmond. Cats and Cats big.
Yeah.
Not arguing with me on that one at all. Love it. Oh, fun one. I probably am not jumping too far to say you are going to be at this game as the GABA sees the Brisbane Lions host Port Adelaide. Port sometimes comes up and gives the Lions a challenge, but I think the Lions just too good in this one. Coming off the bye, rested bodies. Think we could have a fun one. I think Brisbane wins this one by at least 4 goals.
Yeah, I think so. I don't like getting ahead of myself against Port, but I do think I hope the Lions get the job done. It used to be the Gabatoir. We've lost a few home games this year, so I'm a
Mm-hmm.
little bit nervous when we play at home. I used to be nervous when we played away. Now I'm pretty confident with the away games.
Yeah. It's really weird because Port Adelaide, it's seen for me, Port Adelaide tends to have their inspired games under Hinkley at home. No, no, on the
Yeah,
road for some weird reason, not so much. So that's why I'm a little more confident in that. That I think Brisbane win this one. Again, you're playing a poor team that's, like I said, been Jekyll and Hyde to an nth degree in many ways.
yeah.
So I like Brisbane. I think Fagan will have them nice and ripping, ready to go after the bye. Like I said, keep an eye on Darcy Cameron, on Charlie Cameron. I think he could have himself a ripping game of football on this one. So and I just have this weird feeling. Keep an eye out for Cam Rayner. I think this could be a perfect game for him to have a breakout and to kind of spark his second half of the year. So Lions for me on this one. Interesting one under the lid at Marvel Stadium in the prime time game sees the St. Kilda Saints take on the Hawthorn Hawks. Who do you like in this one? Because this one's got me intrigued.
It's going to be a bit of a slugfest. I'd love St Kilda to win. Uh, they need a good win, right? Hawks are going to be flying high after this weekend. But it was a soft win. It was not a hard battle for them. So, but they did play all four quarters, which they would have been really pleased about. They didn't take their foot off the accelerator in the last quarter, I didn't think. So, look, probably Hawks, but I'm actually hoping St Kilda build on their performance from this weekend and get the upset win.
I'm with you. Tipping Hawks, but thinking St. Kilda is a smoky in this one because I think they played fantastic against a very
Yeah.
good side in Fremantle. I think Rowan Marshall has finally kind of got out of his funk that he was there in the little bit of the midseason. And as an owner of him in my draft league, I'm loving that because his point total was fantastic this last weekend for me personally. So a little bit of self-indulgence there. Now, I think the Hawks have got some positive momentum underneath them. The Hawks win this, but the Saints at Marvel Stadium are always a tough. They're always a tough out there. So I think this could be a cracking end of the Saturday slate on that. When we jump to Sunday, and we are treated to a fun one at the SCG. Again, hoping that the ground is a little bit better and hoping the weather is well behaved as the Swans take on the Dockers at the SCG. Who do you like in this one?
Oh, pack your snorkel. Um, that's a really tough one too. Look, I'm going to go Sydney for that one. Um, yeah, but not by much. Sydney by 2 goals. That's it.
This is I'm gonna pull it off, and many people laugh at me with this. I'm gonna tip Frio only because of this. It's a win-win for me either way because if I tip Fremantle and Fremantle win, I get the tip right. If I'm wrong and Sydney win, then my team wins. No, I'm joking on that one. I'm tipping Fremantle only because the wet weather I think will even this game out, and
Yeah.
Sydney plays much better in the dry than in the wet. Fremantle have some heavy bodies. The only thing that may make me think is making me somewhat double think is the Fremantle forward line is tall and it's a marking line. And when you get rain,
Yes.
it's a lot harder to mark the footy, which I think will
Yeah.
help out. Tommy McCartan hopefully will be back from his gastro. That was the reason that he missed the game against the Western Bulldogs. Lewis Melican played fantastic against Sam Darcy in that game. So I
He
think if
did.
they do have the two big, tall defenders both back there, I'm a little bit more confident for them being able to shut it down. The question will be is does Nick Blakey go on a Murphy Reed, which then is a little bit of an advantage Fremantle there, even though Tracy and a miss will be taken by McCartan and Melican. So it'll be fascinating. Um, yeah, I'd love to know if this is going to be a wet weather game because it may make me change my tip to Sydney. Going to stay with Fremantle, but I'm not super confident in this one because Sydney playing much better now that Goulden and Papley are back. Wet weather footy
Mm.
could actually be an advantage for Sydney in this particular opponent. So it'll be fascinating in this one. Like I said, tipping Dockers, thinking Sydney's a good shot. Like I said, I want to know what the rain is because if it rains, I may change my tip. I'll have to see. And then last but not least, Adelaide Oval. This I think is going to be a surprisingly good game. Adelaide, Melbourne at the AO. Fascinating one. Who do you like in this one?
Oh, I think we're going to have to go Adelaide. Just having watched Melbourne at Gold Coast the other day, that first quarter was just so bad. You barely saw Clayton Oliver in that first quarter. Everyone who should have been firing wasn't. That might be the kick up the bum that they need to steel themselves for the Adelaide road trip. But it is two road trips in a row for them, so that might also. But it's an 8 day turnaround, isn't it? If it's a Sunday game, so it's not too bad. I love watching Riley O'Brien versus Max. That will be a good contest. But I think Adelaide's probably going to have a bit too much class at home, so I'll go Adelaide.
Yeah, I'm 2 years ago, this would have been Melbourne all day, but
Yeah.
Max can only do so much. I think Riley O'Brien really can neutralize him. Riley's not going to get a ton of possessions, but if Riley
Mm,
can beat up on Max and kind of do what Jared Witz was, and that's kind of pull Max
yes.
into places he doesn't want to be, I think that tactic, if Matty Nix saw that game film or saw any of the, like, I think First Crack showed it where Jared Witz was taking him to the goal square, he was taking him out of that intercepting ability. I think they do that with Riley O'Brien, and I think that could be a wonderful way to do that. I agree with you. I think the Crows just have too much class. They're playing too good a footy. The possessions that they get on the defensive end are so much better. There's very little pressure when it comes to it. After Keziah Pickett and Jakey Milksham, really, their forward line kind of it's faceless a little bit. So I like
Yeah.
the Crows in this one. I think the Crows win it. But again, having Oliver and Petrarca, you never know when they're going to have blinders. So I think this game is close. I think it gets to the
Mm,
fourth quarter and the Crows maybe extended a little bit, but I think this is a fun one. But I think Crows just too good at this one. But it's going to be so much fun. Cannot wait. A fun 9 game slate there. Don't like the overlapping on Saturday night with the Gabatois and the game at Marvel, but what you have to deal with sometimes. So that is it. That is all 9 games tipped. That is the podcast. Lori, as per usual, it is so much fun talking with you. It's always fun to catch interstate fans sometimes. I love my Victorian friends so much. They're great people. But when I get to talk to a New South Welshman or a Queenslander about footy and they know what they're talking about, and it's so much fun. So, Lori, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. Always great to talk to you.
yeah. Thanks, Donnie. It was a pleasure.
Always, always good. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposal. Again, if you would like what you are listening to, please like it, subscribe on YouTube or on any of the podcast platforms when my producer decides to put it on there. Sorry, Ross, but gotta hang some shit on you just the tiniest bit. He keeps forgetting to put it on the podcast platform sometimes. I have to remind him. But as per usual, ladies and gentlemen, I am Coach Donnie Hess again. So much fun talking footy. Keep track. More footy coverage coming very, very soon.